Welcome to Cut the Slack with your hosts Billy Candelaria and Timothy J. Coy. Sponsored by InlandEmpireHealth.com and PremierLocalMedia.com.
3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back to Cut the Slack. We're here at Flow State in Dos Lagos in South Corona area with James. James, so I'm curious, this is obviously a very impressive concept to us. Like, we love it. It has such a peaceful vibe. There's so many different services that you offer. But I'm kind of curious, what gave you this idea? Tell us about James. Where did you get the motivation? Have you always been like this in a peaceful state? Let us know who you are.
Okay. So I would say I can go back a little bit to where I've not always been in a peaceful state.
Okay.
I've been working construction for pretty much all my life, off and on doing stuff in construction, and I think around being like 25, just getting really stressed out, anxious, all kinds of stuff. I had my daughter was being born, and I went through a shoulder surgery, and I know pretty much after the first one and then getting into the second shoulder surgery, I definitely liked painkillers. And, I was definitely, just pretty stressed out and anxious, and got into a third shoulder surgery and broke my leg around the same time, and really just got pretty deep into painkillers. And that led to, kind of depression, anxiety, insomnia, that kind of stuff. And, after probably a couple years and started to really notice that something was not right and all that, I started looking for other ways to heal and, just feel better besides medication and prescriptions and stuff. And, I started doing like growing my own wheatgrass and eating like vegetarian raw for a while, exercise, all kinds of stuff. And, basically, I started to open up a little more to other things, other modalities and stuff like that.
Well, these things that you're talking about aren't usually how construction workers deal with their pains and their aches.
Right.
So I think that's pretty interesting that you came to this, this side of the coin.
Yeah, totally.
So as you started getting into all this stuff, what did you experience physically?
From floating?
Sure. From, I guess, you started getting into these homeopathic remedies, and also, you talked about vegan raw, and that's a pretty big departure from normal everyday life of eating the cheeseburgers, running through the drive-through, and all of that. So talk about that area in your life, and then how it turned into this idea.
Sure. So, I definitely would notice when I would stick with things that I would feel beneficial, like eating clean and stuff. The way I would wake up in the morning, not need to drink coffee, stuff like that. And but really, with floating, I really started to notice when I was doing inner work and really watching what's going on inside of my mind and my heart and all that kind of stuff. It's just basically I felt lighter. I started to feel light, and it kind of blew my mind, and I really started doing lots of inner work, taking friends out to go float, stuff like that, and it was very far to go float.
So where was your first float experience?
It was in Costa Mesa.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's where I floated several times.
At a business.
Yep.
Similar to this, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had 2 float tanks at the time out there.
Okay. Got it.
Yep.
So not out in the middle of a lake or anything like that. Controlled.
Right.
Okay. I love it. And so how long ago was that with the aches and the pains and the injuries?
Oh, so I was 25. So this was 12 years ago, actually.
Okay.
And it was a long journey, actually. And I ended up really getting sober about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
So it got pretty bad off.
Uh-huh.
And around that time, really just starting to do, take a look at myself and really start working on myself. I found things like being useful to be very beneficial, starting to practice gratitude, these kind of things that I never really thought about before, never focused on really. They probably sounded a little funny to me back then, just like laughable. Spiritual things, just spirituality. What is that? Just really kind of opening up to different ideas instead of just, give me something to fix me kind of thing.
Yeah, when I was younger and didn't care so much about a lot of different things, it was always about go, 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 rush, 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 party, party, party. I'm sure, Billy, you can kind of attest to that. You never had that?
Never.
No. He's been a choir boy his whole life, right? I didn't care much for peace. But then as I got older, had kids, started dealing with some pretty real stress, I quickly learned that peace is invaluable. Just being peaceful.
Yep.
You know, I mean, when you have kids running around your house for long enough, your silence is golden.
Absolutely.
So that then this is all pretty recent. So within 3 years, you got clean and sober. Obviously, kicked the painkiller habit, right? And congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
mean, that's almost impossible to do. But usually that would be rock bottom for some people. I don't know how it was for you.
Yeah. Oh,
Was
yeah.
it?
Oh, sure.
You
Yeah.
got to that point?
Yep.
But then to go from that point to being a business owner of a beautiful, peaceful, serene place like this, how did that happen?
I mean, it's not. I don't know, man. It's not. It's not me. I gotta say, like, it's something else. But like I was
Sure.
saying, that idea of like be useful, like that motivation.
Sure.
It's weird how things started to just align. Like I got to be useful in a community. Just really, when opportunities arose to help people, and just to be helpful, not be so worried about what's going on with me, but really to be able to be a business owner. We had the construction company that I was working for. We ended up selling it, and I ended up getting a nice little deal to stay with the company for a few years.
Okay.
And instead of just socking it away or putting it in the markets, I've wanted to dump it into this place. So.
Wow. Okay. So you were just saving up money
Yep.
from the construction business,
Right.
and you already had this plan.
Not necessarily. I mean, really, when I started floating after I got sober and it blew my mind, I started taking people and sending people to float.
Sure.
And
So you were already kind of promoting the lifestyle.
right. Yeah, it was something that I found, and I think most people that float for the first time say they want to open a float center. Like most people are like, this is what I want to do. A lot of people do that. And
Pretty amazing.
And the weird part is it just started to become realistic within about a year. I started thinking about it after I got sober, and it's just weird how stars aligned. I can't explain it really, actually.
There's a lot of that happening lately.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept, but synchronicity happens all the time, and I know you've observed it. You definitely have observed it here, where people of a like mind seem to walk the same path. For example, when I was in the party world, I would always run into party people. And you're out at the same time of night, you're going the same places. So that's a form of synchronicity right there, where like-minded people are coming together, and you're meeting people just
Which is
because
a natural phenomenon. basically.
natural phenomenon based on your thought patterns and the path that you're walking.
Right.
So if you're going out looking for drugs and parties, you're going to find it. You're going to manifest that in some way. You're going to go to the same places that everybody else is going that's looking for that same kind of thing. When you get into a bad mode of synchronicity, then bad things will continue to fall into place, and that's where you start to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. But on the positive side of things, when you're working to help people, you start to kind of synchronize in a good way with the universe, and in some way it almost feels like God or spirit or the universe or however you refer to that is just lining things up to fall for you. Like
Sure.
green lights just keep popping up as you're driving down the street. Maybe you hit a red light, but the red light helps you avoid an accident.
Yeah.
You wind up at a store and you meet a person, or you wind up at a gym and you meet a person that becomes your business partner or something like that. So an example of synchronicity would be how Billy and I met.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a short time, but we both decided to go to the pool one night. It was kind of a hot night. We ended up, kicking back and chatting, and then next thing you know, we're doing a podcast together.
Yeah,
and it didn't take long. There's some people that you take a long time to get to know, but there's some people that you meet and you're just like, hey, we're on the same plane.
Right.
We're
Yeah,
friends.
Let's roll.
Let's roll
it.
out. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a lesson on synchronicity, but it sounds like that's kind of what happened to you, is as you started to go in the path maybe that God wanted you to go down, then the planets, the stars, the money, the place seemed to align, right?
It certainly seemed like when I started thinking about doing more for others than I do for myself, the ground started to lift beneath my feet. Like, if to put it that way, like, it's pretty wild stuff. And
beautiful.
And I stay pretty much on that, on that grind, I guess. Just be useful, man. Like.
And then how did you get the ideas to have all of these different services? Because it's not just floating.
Right. So that's originally I just wanted to bring a few float tanks to Corona. I wanted to do more than 2, and started looking at spaces. And it's crazy how this all just evolved because I wanted to put it in Dos Lagos after looking at several other places, and I was looking at a little 2,200 square foot spot, and I wasn't ready to sign a letter of intent. Didn't have anything really lined up totally, but I kept getting moved around because other people were looking at spots, and then they asked me to take this space, which was a furniture store, and they offered me a nice deal on it, and then I figured out things to fill it up with, which I've done the Lucia light and floating, or a light like the Lucia light and floating, several times, so I knew I wanted to go with that. The cryo was just, I tried that. It was amazing. Definitely into yoga and sound bath. So it evolved. This stuff just evolved into what it is.
And the way that the spot you have is a prime spot. You're right here kind of at the apex where everyone's coming in, lots of foot traffic. You're not tucked way in the back.
Right.
So talk about like divine intervention.
I don't know, man. Yeah, it trips me out. When I take a second and just like, I gotta catch my breath for a minute. Like, whoa.
I love it.
Yeah.
I just love it, and it's good things happening to good people.
Sure.
So, how long have you guys been open here now?
About 10 months.
Okay. Wow. And how's business? How are things going?
It's flowing, man. Last month was our busiest month of the year. So
wow.
People are talking about it. Yeah, it's unbelievable, and you get to just listen to what people say about the place and what they're writing online, and these books we have here are just full of amazing stuff. It's like, it just blows my mind.
Journal.
Yeah.
How did you end up finding this place, Billy?
Well, I was familiar with floating, and I had searched different locations. I saw the Costa Mesa one. I saw one in Manhattan Beach.
Mm-hmm.
I think Venice. There's one, and I found you guys, and so. I walked in. I didn't call or anything. I just walked in. I said, "Hey, what do you guys have going on in here?" And I got a little tour. And she goes, "These are my different packages. You could float for this much. You could do the cryo for this much." I said, "Let's do them all. let's do it." And so yeah, she fit me in because I know you guys are pretty busy. So they're like, "Well, I don't know if we can do it in this order." I'm like, "It doesn't matter the order. Like, just fit me in." So.
Right.
So yeah, I did it, and yeah, same experience. Like, it's just mind-blowing, and it's just a great use of space. Like, it's a little slice of heaven right here in Corona where you can just come and escape and be one and just ease the mind. That's it. And so having that as a routine, as part of a whole life balance, I think it's part of it. It's part of the formula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your mission here? What do you want to? How do you want to help our community? What's your purpose?
You know what you were talking about, this little being in Corona really is we just want to make this space available for people to help themselves. And a lot of these things are pretty kind of out there. People haven't heard of them too much, but we just really wanted to spread the word, make it available to people. And
what do you think is missing that this business provides?
A place to disconnect and unplug and really just take time to do nothing, which I think is very important. It puts things into perspective when you can do that. Like absolutely nothing, like not even feel a bed or a cushion beneath your butt or your back.
Right.
Yeah, like really unplug.
Sure. I mean, because you could have the most comfortable chair, but after a while it becomes uncomfortable just sitting.
Yep.
And I think the floating is just a wonderful state to be in.
Yeah.
When it comes to meditation, and that's something that I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit, and the reason I got into meditation was initially just peace. And then of course I've started to get into visualization and manifesting my dreams and goals and things like that. But one of the things that people, I think, find it most difficult to do is quiet their mind. And when I've talked to people about meditation, many people say I could never do that, or I tried it and it was just impossible because there were so many thoughts running through their brain. So how do you think these services benefit you in that way?
For meditation, definitely I started practicing in a float tank.
Okay.
The Lucia light is great for practicing meditation. It's with the Lucia light, it puts you in a meditative state.
Sure.
It's like that immediate thing. Now the float tanks, really, I became really interested in listening to, whoever I could find about getting into meditation and quieting my mind. So, I started trying different things. The power of now is a big one for me. As soon as you realize you're not present, you become present, kind of thing. And where all that stuff sounded like a different language to me for a while there, it's like things started to kind of click. And being in a float tank, being away from sensory input, was the best environment I found. I didn't even know what it was really at first when I was in there, and I could just take that state of watching my thoughts and that different level of consciousness of like just watching them, and then you're something else. There's something else going on. That's my thing. That's why I love floating. Like really, I didn't get into it for any other reason.
Sure. And like when I'm meditating at my house, I'll have a bit of a tough time because there's cars driving by, there's dogs barking, there's birds chirping. Some of these things are beautiful, but some birds aren't really peaceful birds.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you can come here and get a little bit of that sensory deprivation in a good way. It's cutting you off from the world so that you can be peaceful.
Yeah.
And what about people that show up, and do you ever offer advice for people that are just beginners that have a lot of thoughts running through their mind? What advice would you offer them when they get started with this?
Sure. For floating, I tell people don't think about floating, think about sinking. Because if you think about floating and you're trying to float, you're going to try to stand on the water. And, if you think about sinking, then you can really give yourself to it, and every muscle can relax, and you actually become the water in a way. You become the environment.
Is the water different because of the salt content? Is it easier to float?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to float effortlessly. A lot of people say they can't float, or
it's noticeable.
They won't be able to float.
And your skin gets really, really soft.
Yep.
It's like, and you don't want to get in your eyes. That's a thing. So
a lot of salt.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. It gets a drop in your eye, and you're like, you have to stop and like spray, and like it's a thing. So
That makes sense. So, because I've heard that obviously it's difficult for some people to float in a regular pool, right? Sure. But then I also heard maybe the Dead Sea, I think, over in that Jean area, that region, there's such a high salt content in the ocean that it was just easy to float.
Yep.
So it's that kind of a concept here.
So our concentration is even higher than the Dead Sea or the Salton Sea or anything like
Really?
that. Yeah, quite a bit higher, to where you don't actually float on top of the water or anything. Most of your body is still submerged, but a little bit of your chest, your eye socket, the water comes right about to the edge of your eye sockets when you're floating, right, and your toes and stuff stick out, but you're totally floating, and you're gonna float, I guarantee it.
Okay. I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Thank you for joining us on Cut the Slack. For more information on health and nutrition, please visit us at inlandempirehealth.com. For more information on promoting your business, visit us at premierlocalmedia.com.